For centuries, the standard theological view of the afterlife was straightforward. When a person died, their soul entered the Barzakh, a literal, physical waiting room within the grave, where they would remain until the end of the world. But in the 11th century, a group of Persian intellectuals and mystics proposed a radical alternative. They argued that the Barzakh was not a physical place at all. We can trace this exact argument to the philosopher Nasir Khusraw and his text Quan al-Ikhwan. By treating the Barzakh as an epistemological state, a condition of knowing rather than a geographic location, these thinkers redefined the transition from life to death as a process of mental refinement. Our goal here is to decode Khusraw's esoteric taxonomy of the afterlife. His framework has massive cross-cultural stakes. When read closely, his ideas map directly onto the philosophical structures of Plato, Immanuel Kant, and Eastern mysticism. To understand how they connect, we will use this animated diagram as our baseline. We are going to construct a unified cosmological map, plotting a vertical spectrum that ascends from a dense physical baseline up to an ethereal peak. The central problem across all these systems is the mechanics of escape. We have to determine exactly how human consciousness breaks out of the prison of physical matter. Khusraw documents the perspective of the al-Asahir, or the literalists. Reality is limited to what can be observed, leaving the physical dirt of the grave as the only dimension for the dead. The philosophers vehemently oppose this. For them, the mortal world is not a temporary staging ground. Physical existence is literally hell. Looking at our map, we place this model on the axes. The bottom layer is the natural world, or hell. The peak is the eternal intellectual world, heaven. This perfectly mirrors Immanuel Kant. We map his phenomenal world below and his noumenal world above. If the phenomenal universe is a trap, the human soul requires a metaphysical bridge to cross the void and reach the noumenal realm. Naqshbandi theorized the Barzakh is a subtle light suspended above the highest physical boundary of the universe, the Falak al-Aflaq. Its heavy bottom connects downward to physical matter, while its refined top connects directly to the universal soul. Khusraw reveals the single mechanism a soul can use to climb this column of light, the acquisition of pure knowledge. This perfectly equates to Plato's theory of forms, where the soul must drag itself from the shadows of physical matter into the pure light. Within this Neoplatonic context, knowledge functions as an ontological engine, providing the literal buoyancy required to lift the soul out of physical matter. Abu Yaqub al-Sijistani offered a stark warning: souls that fail to acquire intellectual knowledge are doomed to circulate indefinitely in physical bodies. Khusraw notes that contemporary scholars violently rejected this idea, labeling it tanasukh, or reincarnation. This concept of tanasukh runs entirely parallel to the Eastern concept of samsara, the agonizing state of being trapped in an inescapable cycle of nature. Escaping this cycle to reach the pure intellect is mathematically identical to achieving moksha, or nirvana. In this model, physical reincarnation functions as a spiritual gravitational trap, the result of an intellect failing to generate enough velocity to reach the non-physical world. Amiri outlines the perspective of the ancient dualists, who believed demonic forces of lust and ignorance constantly battle the liberating forces of piety and knowledge. You find the exact same logic hundreds of years later in Descartes' extreme mind-body split, where the physical body anchors consciousness to decay, while the mind elevates it to eternity. Before we place the final layer on our map, take a second to support the channel. If you're enjoying this deep dive, drop a like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. It helps us keep making these videos for you. Let's look at the ultimate conclusion reached by the wise philosophers, or hakims. They determined that the Barzakh is essentially ilm-e-fikri, or reflective knowledge. As this diagram shows, ilm-e-fikri acts as the necessary middle conduit layer. It bridges the gap between following the physical religious laws of Sharia at the bottom and reaching the pure intellectual truth of Aql at the top. The esoteric tradition requires a fusion of rigorous ethical practice and abstract intellectual pursuit. That combination is the singular vehicle capable of crossing the Barzakh. Watch the diagram closely as Khusraw transitions from metaphysical speculation to pure mathematical logic. The vertical map flattens into a 2x2 matrix grid, sorting these beliefs along two axes, the sensible, or physical, versus the conceptual. Quadrant 1 captures the view that the Barzakh possesses a dual nature. It relies on both physical bodies and conceptual light. Quadrant 2 isolates the position that the Barzakh is neither physical nor conceptual, existing purely as a metaphor. Finally, Quadrant 3 holds the strict physical view of the reincarnationists, while Quadrant 4 represents the strictly conceptual view of the pure intellect. Khusraw uses this logical sorting to resolve centuries of conflicting spiritual accounts into a single taxonomy. What emerges from Khusraw's text is a seamless weaving of Neoplatonic physics, Eastern anxieties about reincarnation, and Islamic theology. Across these diverse systems, a consistent mechanic emerges. The physical universe serves as the environment where consciousness refines itself through the accumulation of intellect. Consciousness begins its existence trapped in the hell of dense physical matter. Your only exit strategy, and the only way to successfully cross the Barzakh, is the unrelenting pursuit of knowledge.